Okie dokie, we're recording. So Christoph, talk to me a little bit about how you came up with the idea for the walk.
Okay, so first I gotta admit, or confess rather, I'm not an outdoorsy kind of guy. I've never been. Like I'm not a person that particularly enjoys camping or walking for that matter. But when I was after high school graduation in Germany, I went to France because I didn't want to go to university. And because I wanted to experience something, I wanted to have a story to tell. That was
Mm.
all I ever wanted. I wanted to have a life where, when I'm old, I tell my grandkids these boring stories of whatever it was I did. That's what I wanted. And so I went to Paris and I got a job at McDonald's because that's all I could do because I didn't really know French that well. And I stayed there for a while and I got some other jobs. And at the same time, my dad said, come back. You got to go to university. You got to become somebody. You can't just do this kind of working thing or your life. So I understood that it was kind of factually correct, rationally, but I didn't really like the idea anyway. And so at that point in time, when I was 22 or 3, I got it into my head that I was going to just walk back from Paris to my home. It's not really that far. It's like 850 kilometers or something like that. I had never walked long distance before, ever. I didn't know if it was going to work. I didn't have enough money for a tent, for, I don't know, sophisticated supplies or whatever. I bought a backpack and I bought a sleeping bag and I had a little, a kind of a rubber mat that I would sleep on. But I never stayed in a hotel, no money. I didn't have a tent again. And I just ate stuff from the supermarket. And so I actually did walk back that time in the summer of 2003, unprepared, with blisters on my feet. I walked for 23 days and I hated every second of it. It was just horrible. I hated the pain. I hated the feeling of fear. Just how do you put your sleeping bag somewhere in a field and just sleep there? That's not something that I like doing. Or what if it rains? Where do you go? I would break into people's carports, kind of. Yeah, I mean, how do you break in? But I would just kind of sleep next to the car and hope nobody would find me. And it was just pathetic, the whole thing. But once I got back, once I was home, after taking a shower, after eating a large meal, and after sleeping for one night, the next morning I looked back and I was like, this was the most awesome time of my life. The sunsets, the sunrises, the feeling of freedom, and I knew it was a lie. I knew it was me, kind of my memory glossing everything over in gold, but I couldn't help it. I really couldn't. And still to this day, I look back and I look at that summer and I feel like it was magic. And so that kind of stayed with me. So then we fast forward a few years. I went into China studies in university in Germany because I had to become somebody, according to my dad, right? So I studied Chinese for some random reason, really. And then I went to China because that's what you do when you study Chinese. You go to China. So I ended up in Beijing on a scholarship thingy where I was just supposed to study the language there. I spent 2 years there, and at some point when I looked out the window, I could see the mountains in the west of the city. You don't see them every day because Beijing is really, really polluted. But sometimes I could see them, and then I would think like, okay, that's west. Now, what else is west? Germany is west. My home is west. And there's no water between my home and here. Like, I mean, there's some water, but you can walk around. It's not like the Pacific or the Atlantic is between. And so then I got this idea, like, what was the best time of my life? Right. Walking from Paris to my home was the best time of my life. So I could just have the same thing, but longer. And yeah, that's how I got the idea. I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to walk from here to my home. That's going to be awesome. Turns
I
out it
love,
wasn't
I love
awesome.
the simplicity, and you just go with it, and the confidence. I think it's interesting because obviously, yeah, your mind's kind of glossed over in a way, You kind of forgotten the terribly scary bits. And sleeping outside is is something I find terrifying. Like I spend a night in the woods and I can hear all the noises, and I'm up all night about it.
Yeah,
But it's interesting that stuck with you as kind of like, yeah, the best time of your life.
I think the human mind is wired that way. That if we have challenges that are uncomfortable, but that don't traumatize us, like obviously there's some experiences in for a human that are going to break them or damage
Hmm.
them, and you're not going to gloss them over with gold. But a certain set of experiences that are terrible in the moment because they're uncomfortable, because you're scared, but you kind of chose them and they didn't break you. You're gonna gloss them over with gold and make them into something awesome later. And you still rationally know that it's a lie. It fucking sucked to be in that forest, to to hear all the sounds and feel just terrified, and it sucked to walk along a highway for 30 kilometers and not seeing anything and being jealous of every single car. These things suck. Or eating the same food out of the can every day, it sucks. But yeah, your mind works that way. It's going to gloss them over. I think that's the reason why women have more than one kid sometimes. The first, like, I don't know what childbirth feels like, but what I'm told is that it's the worst pain you can ever have as a human. And so you would ask, like, why would you want to ever have sex again after going through that thing one time? Why? Because that's how our minds work. They gloss it over, and all the bad things are gone. And then you're like, oh, yeah, that was so nice. I got a little kid. Yeah, but, like, it also really sucked. Yeah, that kind of gets glossed over. And I think that's how our minds work.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting. Like, and you talk about trying to get into the future, and your dad wanting you to go to uni and stuff. Do you feel like you got a greater sense of purpose being on the road? I mean, obviously, in the grand scheme of things, you're not really achieving anything, but I feel like it's more like real life, is in a sense.
I don't know. I think it's absurd and it's stupid. Um, yeah. But I mean, one thing that I think would like to tell other people, and I would like to tell it to myself, but it's impossible. It's really impossible to give yourself advice and also heed it.
Hmm.
Is that you shouldn't get caught up in these things. You shouldn't make them into something really meaningful and like kind of develop this this kind of obsession with the project. Like if you decide to cycle around Britain,
Hmm.
there's going to be hardships and there's going to be all these sucky things, and you're going to gloss them over with gold and tell it to your grandkids later how awesome it was, and they're going to know you're full of shit. But all of this is fine. But what shouldn't happen is that you kind of try to finish this thing even though you don't really want it anymore.
Okay.
You know, there's a large there's a large part of adventurers, explorers, or these people, whatever you want to call them, that continue doing stuff just because they have started them, and they feel like, yeah, the mission is so important. It's absurd. It's absurd. You should be the master of yourself, and whenever it's fun, you do it. When it's not fun anymore, you should have the freedom to quit. But for many people, that's impossible.
So I mean, so how do you feel about your walks? I mean, we haven't really talked about
Yeah.
this idea of setting off to Germany, but I know that you've been doing like bits and pieces. Have you kind of lost interest at points? Have you kind of you suddenly it's been revived, or have you always sort of still had that glossing over and wanting to keep going?
Well, initially it was a one-off thing. Like I was gonna walk in one go from Beijing to Germany. That was the idea.
Hmm.
Naively, I had thought that I could just walk in an unbroken line of footsteps without ever taking a car or any other kind of transport and just kind of get there. But then once you start, you find out that just like visa wise, it's not possible. I had to kind of walk to a place, then take some kind of transport, go to some other place, get my visa renewed, and then go back to that place and continue walking. Which the first time you feel like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm ruining it. The
Yeah.
second, third time, you're like, okay, whatever. Again, you're breaking the thing, but then you continue walking from the original point where you left off. Then eventually, after 1 year of walking and doing this, um, my then girlfriend decided to not wait for me anymore. So I was heartbroken. I don't know if you've been through that, but it is a strong experience. I
Mm.
can recommend it and also not recommend it
So
to be
were you on
heartbroken.
the road at the time?
I was on the road. I had started walking from Beijing, and I had a girlfriend, and I told her, just wait, I'll be there. It's gonna take like a year or maybe two or something, but I didn't know. And yeah, and after a year of waiting for me and me just kind of taking my time strolling through China, she was like, yeah, whatever, I'm not gonna wait anymore. So then I decided it was not worth it. I had to go back, and I went back and I dropped the whole walking thing, but it never left me, and it has turned into some sort of obsession, which I don't think is totally healthy. And that's why I'm saying, like, I'm trying to give myself this advice, but it's not possible. I know that it's absurd. I know it's silly. I know there shouldn't be this obsession, but it's there. I want to continue walking. I want to finish this thing. It's not like it's bitter and I don't enjoy it, but I feel like I should be more free about it, but I'm not. That's just the fact of the matter. I'm not free anymore. It has
So is it
turned into this big thing.
is it a sense of purity, or is it sort of a need to finish it? Do you know you can figure that one out, or not really? It's just you're here
Well,
now.
let me put it this way. When I was in Germany, after kind of giving up on this thing, right? And
Mhm.
I gave up in 2008, and I stayed in Germany until the first time was 2010. That out of the blue, while living in Germany, I was like, I'm gonna go back and just walk for like a summer because I really felt like this thing is what I am. And
Mhm.
so I walked for a summer, and then 2 years later, again, I walked for a summer. And then eventually I told myself, okay, I'm going to try to just finish this thing from 2016 on because I need to get it out of my system. I don't want to always think about these things. Like when I was in Germany, studying, writing books, doing stuff, when I was unhappy about things, I would open Google Maps or Google Earth actually, and I would scroll along the way that I had walked, and that would make me happy. Or I would scroll along the way that I would walk, and that made me even more happy. I would look at place names like Samarkand or Bukhara or Istanbul, and I would imagine them. I tried never to look at modern pictures of them because I want to have them like magical places. I don't want to know what they look like until I get there. But they
Mhm.
would make me so happy. And I felt like that's a nice thing, but it's also kind of like it would be good to be more present where I am and not always be kind of divided. Like I'm 80% here, but a part of me is thinking, yeah, but what about Samarkand? What about Istanbul? And
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's kind of an unhealthy thing to not be complete.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's like when you're back at home or you're doing your own stuff, it kind of like you still wanting to be on the road a bit, and I guess you can't live your whole life on the road, so it's a it's a
You can.
difficult thing, and at times during the trip you want to stop. So I don't know how you can get through that one. Really, I feel like it's something that's just kind of ingrained in certain people.
I think it's easy to fall into the trap of kind of feeling like this thing is important.
Yeah.
I feel for me personally now this thing is important. It's not just I want to do it. It's also important. I know it's not important. I know it's utterly unimportant. It's the least important thing ever. It's absurd. But for me personally, it's important. And then when you look at it from the outside, maybe you're thinking like, yeah, come on, you can do it anytime. You could just finish the walk in 10 years or never. It doesn't matter, does it? But for
Mhm.
me, I'm in it. And so for me, it's important. And I'm not sure if this thinking of it as important is a good thing. But it's a psychological trap when you fall into it. Yeah.
So I mean, so now how collectively, how much time have you walked, and where have you got to? And talk. I mean, obviously you had this magical 23 days, but over this time, talk about some of the experiences.
Um The magic never stopped. The
Mhm.
pain never stopped. The shittiness never stopped, and the fear never stopped. I'm not a particularly brave person. I was intimidated by walking through China, uh, having to walk through the Gobi Desert. I don't know what the fuck to do in the desert. I'm from northern Germany. I've never seen a desert before. What do you do there? How do snakes work? I don't know. So I was terrified of everything. I was terrified of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, these places that sound like Stan. Um, so the shittiness never stopped, but the magic also never stopped. And now when I look back, it's all magic. It's all awesome. So it's like in a way it's really good too. It's just I don't know. Like I think it would be good to kind of gain control over it again, but I don't have that. If we're talking about like time frame or geography, I started walking again from the Chinese border, which I had reached at that point in
Mm.
2016. I have a little cart that I pull, a hand cart. It's called the caboose, and I put all my stuff in there because I don't want to carry a backpack. So I picked up the cart at the border. I crossed the border into Kazakhstan. I was terrified by Kazakhstan. Found out Kazakhstan is nice. Then I was terrified by Uzbekistan. Found out Uzbekistan is nice, and so on. And after having crossed Turkmenistan, Iran, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, I walked into Turkey, and then Corona hit. And so, yeah, now I've been kind of stranded here in Georgia with this whole pandemic situation, not moving, not walking, still looking at Google Earth, still looking at places that I've walked before and thinking, oh, that was so awesome, knowing that it wasn't, and still looking at places that are on the way and thinking that's going to be so awesome, knowing that it won't. And yeah, I'm kind of in limbo. I guess the whole world is in limbo, so I'm not the only one to complain. But yes, I'm also in limbo.
Is it some kind of like a form of escapism? You're hoping to kind of like be off again, or could you be content in your current circumstances, or do you think you just need to get back on the road now?
I could never be content. I think. I think the
Even when you finish, or what do you think?
oh I think after I finish, I have never experienced this, but I've read about it. It's called trail something, trail depression or whatever. It's when
Mhm.
people finish trails like the Appalachian Trail or whatever, and then when they're finished, they fall into a hole, like an emotional hole. They get like this depression, this post adventure depression, where you're like,
Mm.
okay, this was it. Apparently, like there was no fanfare, there was no big orgasm at the end. It was just kind of like, okay, we're here, and then the purpose is gone, the mission is gone, but you're still kind of working on glazing everything with gold. It hasn't happened yet. And so then these people fall into these holes, and I'm scared of that hole. I think it will come when I'm done, but also I feel like no matter how deep that hole is, at least there will be a sense of freedom. Like right now, there are many places in the world that I would like to see independent of corona. It's impossible for me. I would really like to see, for example, Japan, or
Mhm.
really, I would really like to see the South Pole for whatever reason. I don't know, but I would really like to see the South Pole, not the North Pole. Fuck that. South Pole. Really. But I could never go there because it would feel like cheating on the way.
Mhm.
So I would never be completely there. I would be at the South Pole cheating on my love, which is kind of carrying this or pulling this cart through I don't know, Turkey or whatever, and I would not be completely there. And so I think it's yeah. I forgot what your question was.
No, I think I've forgotten as well, but it's no, it's just interesting. It is interesting to sort of feel that you wouldn't be able to kind of fully exist anywhere else until you've finished it. You need your mind to just be able to detach from it.
Yes, this is what happens. This is something that you need to be very, very aware of. It's not good.
So I mean, how? I mean, again, it's how. I mean, obviously, you said you know hoping it was a year or 2 years, and it's kind of it's stretched and stretched.
Oh
You think
God,
it'll,
yeah.
you know when it will come to an end? You know how far? Do you have an idea now, or is it still sort of all to play for?
Um, I I'm I could go to Turkey and continue walking now. It would be possible. Turkey
Okay.
really wants tourists, so they made it possible. Um, but I would feel like a dick, to be honest. I get really unhappy when I see people posting about their travels right now. Like it really
Hmm.
upsets me because I feel like uh, a lot of people they are staying home because they don't want to hurt other people, and that's why they stay home. And a lot of people they stay home because they can't afford to go anywhere and because it's impossible because of various lockdowns or whatever. And then
Hmm.
if I see people, I don't know, going on a trip to Egypt or doing this stuff that I do, walk around, I feel like why do you think you need to first of all do it and second of all talk about it? I don't want to be that person. I want to be the person that kind of walks through Turkey right now, knowing that for Turks, there's a lockdown, but for me as a tourist, there isn't. And I'm just
Hmm.
kind of the privileged white dude, basically, walking through there, being like, hey, you know, it's fine for you guys, but I need to have my fun here. I'm on a mission. And so I'm trying to wait until there's a point where I feel like there's a balance between me walking and doing this shit and
Hmm.
kind of other people also returning to their lives. It's not going to be like the pandemic is completely over, but it should be a little bit like normality has returned, at least to a certain point. It's kind of a grayish thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know when that's going to happen. I hope it's going to happen in May. But the more we get closer to May, the less optimistic I am about it. Maybe it's going to happen in June. Maybe it's not going to happen this summer. But I hope at some point it's going to be a little bit like the the infections are going down. More and more people are getting vaccinated. Summer kind of plays a little role. I hope, and then I would feel like okay, I'm walking through a country where people are kind of living more or less normal lives. That will be nice. Yeah, but I don't know when that's going to happen. When that happens, I think 1 year, 1.5 years
Hmm.
to home.
Well, I think it's also a case of like with the walk, you want it to be genuine, and if you're walking through and you're not being able to actually interact with the people there, it will
Yeah,
just
cool.
feel a bit strange. Yeah.
I mean, there are travelers that post about stuff or talk about stuff like going to the mountains. I don't mind. If a traveler like
Mhm.
is this super nature person and they feel like they need that and maybe they're sharing that for other people that can also go through the to the mountains with them vicariously, fine. But if it's any sort of uh, travel that has to do with other humans,
Mhm.
that like really like hard that like really I get so angry. I don't know why, but maybe because I'm not doing it and I'm also jealous, you know.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, it's an interesting thing. Like, you know, I try and get a similar sense in England, like when the right time is,
yeah.
and I'm going to just go with the restrictions, and hopefully, you know, it will be at the same time as everyone's allowed to go out and do things, and I can actually not just be on the side of the road without any interaction. I can, you know, go and drink with people and have conversations
Yeah.
and kind of explore the way it should be. Really,
Yeah, I mean, otherwise, what is it? It's
you're
just,
just kind of going through, but yeah, it's kind of like. I don't know, like a snapshot holiday, isn't it?
you know, traveling is always two thronged. Kind of, it's a travel outwards and inwards,
Hmm.
but there should be a balance. I think if somebody writes about their travels and it's only talking about what they see and what the landscape is like and about interactions with people, I think that's kind of nice, but there's something missing because I also want to hear about your personal experience. Like, when did you have diarrhea? And when did you realize that you're an idiot for doing this? And when did you cry? I want to know about these things.
Hmm.
So I think like you should have both. Now, if you travel through a place where you cannot interact with people, it's going to be only you talking about yourself, endless diarrhea, I guess, and landscapes. Like really, I don't know. That's not enough. Sorry.
So I mean, it's interesting because I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I haven't spent very long on the road. It's, you talked about 23-day walk, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
did a 23-day cycle last September, which has
Mm-hmm.
made me want to do something bigger. Which is it's an interesting thing, but it was the conversations that were really transformative. And even though it's a country that it's my country, it was still surprising the people I met and the conversation I had that I felt like I couldn't have in day to day life.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, actually, that you travel through your own country. I think more people should do that. I get emails a lot from young people. For some reason, a lot of them are 17. It seems to be like this age. And
That's
then
the
they
number.
write me and they're like, hey, this is, I don't know, Mark from Los Angeles. I want to walk through Africa. Or like, I want to ride my bike through Patagonia or whatever. And then they're like, well, my parents, they don't support that. They're against it. Can you help me somehow? Can you, like, tell them that it's cool because you're doing the same thing, Chris? Like, tell them. And I'm like, they're right. You shouldn't be doing this. Like, seriously, if you need me to tell you that it's a cool thing, then you don't want it enough. That's the first thing, right? You don't need people to kind of clap you on. It should be you want this, and everyone else is like, no, it's stupid, but you still want it. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, like, if you're just starting with adventuring, really adventure is right outside your door. Just like you said, like you take your bike, you go in a straight line in some direction. It's gonna be
Mhm.
awesome. You're gonna, like, after on a bicycle, after I guess a half hour, maybe an hour, you're gonna be in territory that you don't know. And then it's going to be people that talk about stuff that is not connected to your life. You don't have to go to I don't know, to Uzbekistan for your travels to be interesting. That's just kind of making them more exotic. But
Mhm.
really, I think the adventure is right there, right outside of your door. You just go in a straight line, keep going, and at some point you're going to run into something really interesting, and that's great. I think it's really good.
Well, there's some magic to it, and I always, when people talk about starting, it's a similar thing, like, younger. I mean, I'm I'm quite young still, but when people talk about it, I do try and tell people you don't necessarily need that sort of exotic sense of going to faraway places. If you haven't had the opportunity to see your own country, I think a lot of people don't. You always, almost like when you're young, you always imagine places beyond yourself. You don't ever think of your own country. And I think this time when I go on the next cycle, because I'm going around the coast of my own country, I know that I'm going to meet so many interesting characters that I wouldn't necessarily have believed otherwise. I feel like a lot of people, oh, this is the way people are in my country. You get used to it. You get used to talking the same way, and you think you sort of know how people are, and it's amazing how that changes.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an awesome idea, really. And I mean, there's nothing kind of against branching out later when you're like, okay,
Mm.
I've done Britain, now Ireland, or whatever.
Mhm.
But like to pick something super exotic at first, sure, but I don't really see the point.
Yeah, it's no, it's an interesting thing. So okay, let's talk a little bit about this. So you went to China and stuff. Did this? You're in there for. You said you're in 2 years in China.
Yeah.
So the whole time was this idea there, or was it only until you sort of just witnessed the mountains and yours?
Well, the idea, I've talked about this a lot and I've thought about it a lot. So it comes out like in a very, or maybe it comes out in a very picturesque way when I say it.
Mhm.
Um, this idea was kind of like a flower in myself. At first, you can almost not see it. Like it's just like this little thought. Like the flower is just kind of coming out of the ground, and you're like, was I really just thinking about walking back to Germany? No, no, no. Like that's just stupid. Like, and then you try to stamp it out, and you're like, I forbid myself from thinking about this because it's so outrageously stupid. Like, how could you walk from Beijing to Germany? You don't even know what's between them. Maybe Venezuela is in the middle. I don't know. So really, like, just get rid of this idea. It's embarrassing to even think about it. Like, I don't know if you had dreams of becoming an astronaut or a princess when you were little. at some point you don't mention these dreams to anybody anymore because they're just embarrassing, right?
Mm.
Like, oh yeah, I want to be a movie star. Yeah, you stop telling people that when you're like 6 or 7, and then you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna bury that somewhere, and at some point it's gonna die, and that's gonna be better for both of us. So this is kind of the same, but the flower just keeps growing back. Like, it's there, you stamp it out, and then after a while it's there again, and you're like, wow, why are you there again? Why are we again going over this? Like, you can't walk from Beijing to Germany. It's just really stupid, and it's embarrassing to think about it again. And then it goes bigger and bigger and bigger, and at some point it's there, and you really have to like go through an additional step where you're like, okay, I can't kind of obliterate it by myself anymore. I need additional aid. So I'm going to look at a map. The map is going to help me. If I look at the map is going to be the authority to help me crush that dream. And you look at
Realize
the map, and you're like,
how far it is.
yeah, it's really far, but also, fuck, it's possible. And then you have this additional step of saying, now, is it strong enough for me to tell people? Because that's when you go and you say, like, guys, I want to be a princess, you know? Or like, guys, I want to be an astronaut. And everyone's like, yeah, right, Chris, you're just being really naive now. And yeah, and that's when you kind of come out with your idea. You come out of your own closet and you're like, ta-da, I want to walk from China to Germany. And everyone's like, you're an idiot. But at this point, the plant is already so big, the flower. There's nothing you can do against it anymore. It has taken over, and that's when you know you're in for good. Yeah.
So how long was it sort of like the planning stage? When you knew that right, you're going to set off, how long was it before you
So
actually left?
the growing process of that plant was maybe 1.5 years or something. And
Really?
then,
Okay.
yeah, in Beijing, like, I would not, I would keep myself busy with all kinds of things and never look at that plant. But it always came back. And then at
Yeah.
some point, I look at a map, and it wasn't until like a few months before I actually started really planning this thing, when I told my best friend, and I didn't even have the balls to really tell him. I was like, well, I saw on TV maybe some guy, and they're like walking or something, maybe from China, and he's like, Chris, an idiot, don't do this, you know. But like, yeah, what can you do? Like, everyone's mad, everyone thinks you're stupid, and they're right, but what can you do? It's there.
I mean, did the opinions change once you set off? I feel like a lot of people, give a lot of warning. Then once you're there, you're
No,
kind of
they're
behind
right.
it.
No,
No, they are. No.
they're right. I mean, if like I said, like, when I get these emails from young people,
Mm.
I tell them don't do it. I don't tell them don't do it because I don't want them to do it. I tell them don't do it because I feel like they should really want it. They shouldn't.
Mm.
I don't want to encourage anybody, because if they need the encouragement, it's wrong. They should really want to do it. Even though Chris said no,
Hmm.
you know, I think that's important. That you're not kind of driven by other people's approval.
Well, I often feel like, you say with the 17-year-olds, if they were to go out on like a little trip, if they're going to go for like 15, 20 days, and got a taste for it, I think that would change a lot. I feel like a lot of them have the capability to do that. So hopefully, that would be a good option.
Oh, I would always tell people to go on a little trip in their own environment for 20 days. Whatever. If it's 2 months or something, but like somewhere where you're safe, and you kind of know the place, because these things are difficult enough as they are.
Hmm.
But they just get much more difficult if you're in an environment where you don't know shit. Like, when I walk into the Gobi Desert, I don't know anything about it. And then it's good if you've had a little bit of this whole walking thing before that, and you don't just parachute into the desert and you're like, oh, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, so you talk about you're hoping that writers kind of provide a bit of in and out, so showing you a little bit of the journey. Is there stuff that you feel like really transformed you that you didn't expect to happen, or any sort of low moments that you think changed you in mind at all?
Well, I think while it happens, there isn't that much of a transformation. I think
Mhm.
just like any experience in life, you need time to process it. Like something happens to you, and while it happens, it has an impact, but it's not. How should I say this? It's you don't respond to it in an adult way. You don't have the grasp on it, what it means, and you haven't processed it. So basically, I feel like in my travels, while they happen, I don't get any wiser. I don't get transformed or learn anything new really. Like no deep things. After they're done, when I kind of sit down and I'm like and I go like, what the was that? Like all of this. Then maybe if I'm lucky, I can kind of distill something out of it, and something will be transformed. But yeah, I don't know if that's a good reason to travel.
Yeah, it's no, it's interesting. I didn't think of it like that. Like sort of like these periods of time where you sort of need this reflection. So maybe COVID in a way. Do you think it's given you a bit of time? Is there any new revelation since this time?
I hope it did. I'm not sure. What I do know is when for me walking through Iran was was very like a strong experience. Iran is a very strange place, for better or for worse. It's a place for me personally that I loved and I hated, and so many things happened there, so many intense things. For example, I actually went viral in Iran for ranting about the government. Like I was unhappy with some shit that they did, and I made a video and I put it online, and somebody else grabbed it and put Persian subtitles on it and put it on some viral channel or whatever, and I was viral in this country where I don't even know the language, and it was really scary because I was viral for a bad reason. And so when I left Iran, I felt like I was drained, and so much had happened that I would have really liked to take a break and just kind of maybe sit in a place and kind of process what just happened. But I couldn't because in Azerbaijan, the next country, I got 30 days for a visa, and then I had to leave the country and come back, and I got another 30 days. So I really had to walk through the country like in a I don't know, like in an unstopped manner. Like I had to just manner. I just had to continue walking. So I feel like that wasn't very healthy because I didn't have the time to process what had happened. I just
Mhm.
kept going, and I added new stuff from Azerbaijan, and I added and added and added. And in hindsight, I don't know what I could have done different, but this is kind of what I was getting at before. Really, sometimes you need to kind of stop in a place and be like, okay, what happened? And now in COVID, it's not like nothing is happening. I am in this lockdown here. I don't know how it is for you, but I'm suffering under it. I think a lot of people are suffering. It is an involuntary kind of imprisonment, if you will, in a place. Um,
Mhm.
there's a great sense of uncertainty. There's also this experience of looking at governments and being like, "What the are you doing?" That is not very nice. This feeling, like before, you're like, "Yeah, okay, they're idiots," but it's kind of working, and now you're like, "Oh God, no, they're really idiots." Um, and so I don't know if this is a time where I'm really like relaxed enough to process anything, or am I adding additionally the experience of having like this pandemic around me? You know, it's not just about physically stopping.
Yeah, you don't have that opportunity to really just relax and reflect on things.
Yeah. How do you feel about this lockdown? Oh, or not this lockdown. How do you feel about the pandemic? Does it take something out of you?
It does, and I'm not entirely sure why. I don't know whether, I mean, I mean, I'm at home a lot, and obviously I'm still taking the opportunity to go cycling. So I feel like I get a bit of escape in the day. Like if I go for a cycle, it's kind of feels like a mini a mini trip. But yeah, it's still something that lingers. I still don't get that quite get that sense of release, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. This is a little bit what I'm talking about. It's not a relaxed time. By the way, one thing I would like to tell you, I don't know if you do already, but if you travel, definitely keep a journal all the time, handwritten.
Yeah. Is that something you started when you first began, or is it something you picked up later on?
No, I always keep a journal, always.
Well, it's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing how much you forget. I mean, even from my trip, I tried to relive it through photos and stuff. It's it's quite difficult.
It's not just about the surroundings, what's around you. That also plays into it. You're gonna forget conversations. You're gonna forget stuff that is not visual if you don't have the photo. Um, but I think that
Yeah.
the stuff that's going on inside of you, you're also going to forget it. And it's not only about forgetting; it's also about when you keep a journal, then you're forced to every day or whenever you do it to kind of choose what is worthy of the journal, because obviously your day has so many hours and you have so many encounters and you have so many kind of impressions and thoughts, but you can't write them down, all of them, because you're not going to do like this stream of thought, stream of consciousness, I guess it's called. What you want to do is say, okay, maybe half a page is going to be today, what was important today. And if you do that, then you're kind of helping your brain decide what will be forgotten and what won't, and that's, I think, important.
I mean, so what do you find important about your days on the road? Like, what kind of sticks with you, or does it change?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I mean, for me, conversations are always important because I write books. So I want to be able to write accurately about what kind of people I encountered and what they were thinking or saying, or what they were like.
Mm.
But also, I think a lot of it is these random thoughts that kind of pop into your head, and then they're gone, but sometimes you manage to catch them, and then you look at
Mhm.
them later and you're like, okay, that was emblematic for that time. I didn't know it then, but it was, this thought
Mm.
was what really described this time. And I think that's a nice thing to have, as opposed to the thought coming and then going and you never seeing it again.
Well, I also think it adds a certain richness to the writing as well. Being able to sort of, it's almost, as you go through the journey, you're writing as if it's at the time.
Well, literary writing is different. Like if you're gonna write a book about your journey, it's gonna be very different from your journal. But it's good to have the journal. But that's a different matter. That's like a professional way to look at it. But even if you don't write about it, even if you don't want to publish, it's still good to have the journal for yourself. When I look at my 23 days that I walked, some of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff I read it and it's not even me anymore. I read it as if it was another person, and it surprises me. And I'm really happy and grateful to myself that I wrote it, because otherwise it would be completely gone. That would suck.
Yeah, it's interesting. I suppose you try and look back at the past the way you are now,
Yeah,
rather
but
than yeah, rather than at the time. Yeah.
have you read Firmer?
No.
Patrick Leigh Firmer.
Okay. Tell me a bit about him.
British dude, walked through Europe in 1930 something, and he was 18.
Okay.
He walked from, I think, Rotterdam to Istanbul. And so the guy had these amazing experiences, then lost his diaries, his journals, then found them again when he was like 60 or something. And so old man meets young man, and then he makes them into a book. And it's an amazing book because the young man is in there and the reflected old guy is also in there. And it's really very powerful. If you're talking about travel writing, you're very lucky because the guy writes in English.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like worth a read for sure.
Definitely.
I think it's interesting. I mean, like you know, I guess I mean, when you're in one place, I don't feel like you change very much. But I feel like, like you said, like when you're on the road, then if you have the opportunity to reflect on it, I feel like you do change maybe more quickly than if you were, trying to do the same thing in one sense. I don't know whether you could look back and say you would be as different as you were if you hadn't gone on the journey.
Oh, I don't know. I suppose, you know, in order to be on a long journey, you're going to have to establish rituals. And
Mm,
so the morning routine, the packing of your stuff, the first kilometers or whatever, and even lunch routine or dinner routine, you're gonna just need these routines. Otherwise, you're gonna go nuts. You can't make decisions all the time about everything. Some things just have to be like, okay, it's time for this now. And so maybe in a way there's even less potential for change when you're traveling, because you might be under this regime of, this is me now, this is traveling me,
mm,
it's always this and always that. Um, but I think the encounters with other people and with new stuff that might challenge you in a way, yeah, I think that's a potential thing where you could have growth if that's what you're looking for. But it can also be something that you just that kind of ricochets off you, because you don't let it get too close to you. All these challenging things. I think
mm,
as a I was asked to write a foreword for a book, and it was about solo traveling. And they wanted, I thought, a foreword that was kind of, um, I don't know, kind of saying like, I'm a solo traveler, so I'm going to tell you guys solo traveling is awesome. But I didn't want to do that for some reason. I think one of the reasons is just my character. I like to just kind of not do what people want. And the other reason was, I felt it was disingenuous. I guess, like, it's kind of like you can travel as a solo traveler and still be in your bubble. It's totally possible. You can be just you can take in whatever is around you and still not let it get too close to you, because you don't have
mm,
that curiosity anymore, or you never had it. And you're physically there, but you're not really there. It happens to me sometimes. I have days when I'm walking where I know I'm not really here. It's something to blame yourself for or not, but it happens.
mm,
But you could also be in a travel group on a bus with 40 other people, but still your nose is on the window because you're looking outside at the stuff that is outside, and you're like, wow, wow, it's really Paris. Wow. And you have this curiosity, and you're looking at everything and just kind of inhaling the world around you. And
mm,
it's not because there's people around you that you can't do that. You can have this curiosity, or you don't, you
mm.
know. And I think that's really important to remember.
So, I mean, do you ever lose that on the trip, or do you feel like the gaps give you the opportunity to relive it, to bring it back, or?
I mean, a lot of, I guess, we have our mood swings and mood cycles.
Mm,
I don't necessarily lose the thing for any particular reason, but I lose it sometimes. And then I feel like, okay, so today was a day that I walked, but I was somewhere else in my mind. And
yeah, yeah.
and that's kind of sad, but that's how it is. It's kind of like this curiosity, you try to keep it and you try to protect it, but sometimes it's just not there. If it's never there, then why did you even travel in the first place? You try, you want to have it there, but if it's sometimes you lack it, yeah, maybe that's something to look at. Why is it gone during those times? But yeah, sometimes it happens. You're gonna have that on your bicycle. You're gonna be like, I don't know, listening to some music because it's just boring and it sucks, and you'd be like with, I don't know, some person that you like in your mind, or maybe you're gonna be playing computer games in your mind, or you're gonna be like, what the am I doing in your mind?
Yeah.
And these moments happen, and that's also part of traveling, but that's not the grand moments of traveling.
Hmm. Well, I think it's interesting because, yeah, a lot of people do want to just gloss it over, right? So I guess with this book, it sounds like it sounds quite glossy.
Oh no, you mean the book where I wrote the forward? No, no, no. It's
Was it
different
not?
experiences. No, it wasn't. It was just me being a dick. I think like yeah. Um, and I started the forward with like something like "Hail to you, tourists." Because I really, this is something I really don't like. I don't like it when people talk about tourist and traveler as if they were something different,
Mhm.
because it's always about this elitism where we go like, yeah, the traveler hangs out with the locals, and the traveler doesn't go on the beaten path, and the traveler is so immersed in the local culture. I'm like, dude, like, you can be an ignorant traveler with your off the beaten path, and still you're not there, but you can also be a really nice open-minded tourist. So I don't like these words, but no, the book was okay. There was a collection of travel writing by different writers. Some were better, some were worse, in my opinion. But no, no, definitely wasn't trying to gloss over anything. They were just not expecting, I think, me being a dick.
Well, it sounds like you give a more honest account than than most people. Um, I'm conscious of time.
Don't worry, man.
Um,
It's all good.
I'd love to talk some more, but I think we're gonna have to bring it to a close. So usually, I actually usually do podcasts for about half an hour or so.
All right.
Um,
Well, you can cut it.
but no, we can put the full thing out. I guess that's the joys of hosting a podcast. But yeah, man, it's been great to chat to you, and I think we'll finish it if that's good with you.
My pleasure. When do you think your trip is going to start?
Oh, so 17th of April is the plan.
Oh, you have a date.
So far, yeah. So we
Nice.
have we got restrictions lifted today in England, and the next restrictions get lifted on the 12th of April, and that's when like everyone can kind of return to doing everything outdoors. They're kind of encouraged to go around and do some travel. Like hospitality opens up outdoors, like bars and restaurants and that kind of
Mm,
thing. Um, so at that stage is when I hope to set off, and obviously I'll just be sleeping outside the whole time and stuff. I don't think I'll be able to stay with people, but people will be able to go out and do things. So I hopefully won't feel guilty in that sense.
nice. Well, that's good. That's good.
But yeah,
I'm
I'm,
happy
I'm
for you.
intrigued. I'm intrigued to see sort of like. I mean, it's a lot longer than last time. It's maybe 4 months or 5 months on the road. I wonder what it'll do, or if
Oh,
anything.
it's gonna be interesting. Keep your journal. Really,
Okay,
do it. Keep your journal, and yeah, don't slack. If you miss a day, it's fine. Just pick it up again after.
just getting it. Yeah, I guess just getting in the habit of even if it's a few things, it'd be nice to kind of look back on because I really wish I had done in the last trip. Just to
There
have
you go.
like yeah, I do. Because yeah, photos just it's not quite enough. Even though you have photos with people occasionally, I can't remember any of the conversations. I have a rough outline of that character, but I can't remember the
Yeah.
conversation.
One more thing, and this is gold
Mm,
advice. Keep a diary or like the journal in a handwritten form in a little notebook, and
mm.
then every few days take photos with your phone of your pages that you have written and send them to you by email. That way, if you fall into the water or your notebook gets stolen, you still have your stuff. Really, you don't want to lose them.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine it feeling like a.
Oh
I
god.
can imagine it being very heartbreaking if it.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
yeah, yeah.
Oh god. Yeah, you really don't want that to happen. So take photos of them, and you're good.
Should be good to go.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome,
Man,
and it's
I'm
also
excited.
gonna
I'm
suck.
really. Huh? It's also going to suck. I know. I mean, I think the things that it's funny because when I talk to people about it, they always interested in like the big ideas. They're sort of like, oh, that's exciting, it's exciting. But the things that I think about are like the little things, like sleeping at night and what I'm going to eat on the road, and just like the little things that I think that are going to, yeah, not be so fun.
Yeah, but gold gloss, gold gloss.
We'll see. Oh, right. I'm going to leave you to it. It must be really late where you are.
Yeah. It is late now.
Oh, well, it's been good to chat to you. I'll stop this recording in a minute.
All right, man.
We'll cut and chop it, and we'll make it sound lovely.
Cool.
Obviously, I think I'm going to leave pretty much all of it in there because it's been a good
All right.
chat.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. It's been good to chat to you.
Yeah, you too, man.
See you later, man.